So I finally watched the 2005 Peter Jackson adaptation of America's favorite big guy, King Kong. And it took me this long to finally get to it because I just didn't really care to see Kong in any other way than the glorious stop motion, or even the versions of him in a big dumb gorilla suit. It felt like a sin against humanity to see him any other way. But I knew I'd have to one day get used to this horrible world of computer-generated effects. And who better to helm such a revered classic piece of American cinema than the guy that directed Bad Taste and Dead Alive. Yes, I suppose he also directed that super obscure franchise known as Lord of the Rings. So given the pedigree of his work and the reverence for the source material, it makes sense that he'd be the next director to tackle King Kong. He's openly discussed that the 1933 King Kong is the movie that got him into filmmaking and is one of his favorite films of all time. He even owns one of the stop-motion armatures of Kong in his collection of film props. So it's fair to say the studios didn't just hire a vanilla corporate yes-man type director. The story here is pretty much the same as the original, which is good and bad. On one hand, all the characters you know from the original are more fleshed out and aren't as old-timey stock archetypes like they were originally. Especially Naomi Watts as Ann Darrow. She feels like a real character and not just a blandly characterized blonde woman love interest type. And one of the other leads is Adrian Brody, who plays Jack Driscoll, a playwright and friend of Carl Denham's who gets roped into the Skull Island adventure. And I gotta say, Adrian Brody's role in this is kind of one of the weaker elements of this movie. He's just kind of boring as Jack Driscoll. There are some fun additions like Andy Serkis, who's doing double duty as Lumpy the ship cook and doing the motion capture for Kong. He's great in both roles. It's always cool to get some live action Andy Serkis, and he provides some of the lighter moments of an otherwise pretty earnest film. And just like in the original King Kong, the best and most interesting character is the ambitious film director Carl Denham, this time portrayed by Jack Black of all people.
That's where I'll shoot my picture. Will there be boobies? Boobies?
His performance is pretty great. His version of Carl Denham has a bit of a darker edge and seems very Orson Welles-like in his obsessive drive as a filmmaker. There are a few other newer characters and they're all serviceable, but their part pretty much ends after the Skull Island adventures. The most notable addition to this version is Kyle Chandler playing Bruce Baxter, a comically vain leading man for the new Carl Denham picture. And in terms of the whole cast, I don't really think there's a weak spot. Everyone's pretty good. And basically all of the Skull Island portion of the film is the big action CG spectacle. And of course, when you look back at the CG effects from the 2000s, they're not exactly easy on the eyes. It's only noticeably silly looking in the scenes where the cast are running from the stampede of dinosaurs. When you take the humans away from the action scenes, the CG creatures actually look pretty good, especially the scenes where Kong's fighting the dinosaurs. Kong actually looks like a legit giant ape, and the detail on him is pretty impressive. The motion capture acting of Andy Serkis is great, and Kong's face is pretty expressive, and he feels like a real emotive character and not just a giant monster. The set design of Skull Island looks great, and the recreation of Depression-era New York City looks just as detailed, and shows New York in ways the original never could. You can tell that Peter Jackson wanted to make this an epic film, and so much so that he made it super long. It's over 3 hours long, and you could basically fit 3 of the original King Kong into this one. I think the parts that drag on just a little bit too long are the action-adventure scenes on Skull Island, especially the dinosaur stampede, and of course the CG looks pretty dated there, but I can get past that. But the action scenes feel kind of tedious after a while. But overall, these big dumb CG popcorn moments are pretty entertaining. And there are some fun, ridiculous moments you'd expect from a younger Peter Jackson. And no King Kong film would be complete without that downer last act in New York City where our boy Kong meets his demise. I think this Kong's death is done very well and does feel more tragic than the other King Kong versions. Overall, this is a good movie, and anyone delving into the Kong or kaiju films will enjoy this, but it's very long and not one I'd revisit too often because I kind of prefer the original 1933 version quite a bit more. This is definitely a worthy King Kong film and was in the right hands with Peter Jackson. If you enjoyed this film, you might want to check out the Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. I've heard it's a pretty great game. But yeah, definitely watch this movie. Heck, watch all the King Kong movies that ever existed because I think they're all worth watching. So see ya next time.